Hello, it's me, Jay, your GM. I use he, him, and them.
And it's me, your air. I use he, him. And this is Jay on Air. Colon space. Don't break our hearts again, Watsy.
Don't.
Colon space. What do you want out of your 6th edition?
I want out of your colon space. I don't
Yeah,
want to
I
be in your
mean,
colon
I
space.
don't blame you for that. It's a dark place.
So the concept this time is we are going to go through some changes we would do to a potential 6th edition. These would be the good changes that should happen. And you know, since there's got to be a visual element to a YouTube content, why not a tier list? So
They seem to be pretty popular,
yeah,
so.
we're just gonna put it on a tier list, even though it's probably doesn't need to be on a tier list. But here we go. And we thought maybe we would return to this at some point, so we could, come back and maybe add some more in later if we have other ideas or want to talk more about like a hypothetical.
Yeah, when 60 comes out, we can see if all of our brilliant design trajectory that we were suggesting got followed.
A thing that should happen for 6E is we should remove the second stats. Remove the second stats. So basically, right now, there are two sets of stats. There are your modifiers and your core stats. So these are two different sets of stats, and basically they only ever confuse new players. Whenever you're explaining D&D, you're like, roll a strength save, and they're like, okay, I have a 16 in strength. Did I roll plus 16? It's like, no, you roll plus 3, and they're like, how do I get plus 3 out of 16? Excuse me? Well, you minus 10 and then divide it by 2. Why do I do that? It's like, well, listen, it's a long story. But I just think there's no reason to have a second set of stats, and I think a lot of games, OSR games use roll under. I think a lot of games just use the modifiers, like Pathfinder, I think, is basically just using the modifiers at this point. A lot of games have figured this out. I think it's time for D&D to figure this out. It is just confusion, and I think it could happen.
I think it could happen. I mean, I think you might be able to count on one hand the number of rules that use your actual ability score and not your modifier. Like
Right.
push, drag, lift. Like it tends to be like physical things to try to define like how far or high can I jump, how heavy a thing can I drag or lift over my head, like, and that's those are really it. So I don't see why that couldn't happen. Those rules could easily be addressed in a new edition to just give you your modifier and be done with it.
What's your first one?
My first one is multiclassing, and I think that this is never going to happen because I wish it death. And it's ironic for me to do that because I don't think I've ever played a non-multiclassed character, but when it comes to game balance, and I know like when Kova was talking about the reason they didn't do it in Draw Steel, it's because when they were designing for 5e, they ended up hating having to deal with multiclassing, which is a rule that I don't know that definitely not every table does. I don't even know that most tables do. It is the way that I think most often you can optimize the fun out of playing. That's when you get. So I don't know if I've ever seen an optimized build that doesn't at least dip one level via the multiclassing rules.
So I actually think that this could happen, and so we're gonna balance in the middle and go to unlikely.
Really? I would love to hear because.
I think that I think it's not just a difficult thing to balance for Matt Colville. I think it's probably been really hard for the team at WotC.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think that there are so many subclasses that are basically just multi-class flavor. That multi-classing as a system is kind of unnecessary and vestigial. So I honestly think it could happen that in the next version they're just like, we don't need we can get what we need out of multi-classing with subclasses. I don't think we need it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I've always felt that so much of the character concepts you get out of multiclassing are pretty well represented in all of the subclass options that multiclassing only really serves a mechanical role, and it's one that leads to the sort of deviant behavior I'm known for.
So I'm gonna make a hot take here, and you can knock me down a peg if you'd like. But
Okay.
I'm gonna put this in probably gonna happen.
Wow,
I think
really?
I think tiers of success on rolls is probably gonna happen. Here's my reason. It's been in every DMG for 2014. It was in the original DMG. It's still in the second DMG as like option. It's not even optional rules. It's like this is something you can do, but it's not listed as an optional rule. It's like here's something maybe you should try out or something you should think about when players roll under the DC by a certain threshold, or when players roll over the DC by a certain threshold, or if you want your players to succeed but they miss by just one, you might allow them to succeed but have a consequence attached. There's basically already tiers of play written into the rules. Tiers of success. It's just not formalized in like a chart that you roll on that tells you what you get. But I think it's probably gonna happen. I believed in this. I think it's probably gonna happen. Like they've already been putting it in the DMG both times. So like, why wouldn't they just formalize it?
Yeah, absolutely they're going to, because I mean failing forward is definitely time honored tradition. It's handed down wisdom from DM to DM to say, if they fail to jump over a pit, don't just kill their character. Like, save or suck. It doesn't save and only sucks. And so, make sure that you're doing more narratively interesting things. Definitely put their ass in the fryer out of the frying pan, but don't just kill them outright if they fail a check. So I love Tears of Success. It's part of when I first saw like Powered by the Apocalypse games. I was like, oh, it codifies things like Tears of Success. It codifies things like failing forward, where like the most common role is you get what you want, but you get a setback, right? So that sort of thing is really interesting to me. I guess my question to you is, are you saying this for only skill checks, or do you want Tiers of Success across the entirety of D&D? Because when I think about,
I don't think they go to some like draw steal system where there's 3 outcomes for every attack you make or something like that. No.
and that's exactly why I thought they might not do it, is because the combat is so based upon very binary rolls of you save and this happens, or you don't save and this happens. You roll and you hit or
Well,
you
listen.
miss.
If you want to knock me down to could happen, you could do so. You could knock me down to unlikely. If you like go never gonna happen, I think the middle would be these two.
No,
So it's
I
up to
think
you.
could happen is definitely reasonable. Probably
Okay.
because I think they want a consistent roll mechanic, right? They want, and if they split it between, your more skill check based role play is somehow even more different from combat, I think that might alienate players. So that's why I'm thinking I'd love to see it, not as sure.
Okay. What's your second one?
I want spellcasting to differ by class. I think this is probably pretty unlikely, but I'd love to hear your take on it after I've kind of, quote, forgive the pun, spelled it out. So I think that the spellcasting system as it exists works really great thematically for the wizard class and literally no other class. Because the way spells are described, it's very much like an equation, right? It's very much like, it's this much damage, it's this range, it's this radius. It gets even into like the fiddly bits of like it requires, a pearl worth this much money, or the eye of a newt. Like, you have to have a hand free for your somatic components because you have to be wiggling your fingers to do it. All that stuff screams to me thematically of classic mage wizard type magic casting. But when I think of like a cleric, I think of far more like divine intervention, of standing there and praying to your god, and maybe there's a chance they hear your prayers if your faith is strong enough, sort of thing. And the thing that happens is miraculous. And what's definitional of a miracle? It is not something that you could have scienced your way into. Like, it is, a miracle is not going to be always 20 feet across, 120 feet away. It always does radiant and lightning damage. Like, I want spell casting that is far more thematic to the casters. I want Warlock staff to spellcast by giving something up that their patron wants. I want sorcerers to have to tap into the memories of the ancestor they got their powers from, or something like that. Right now, all spellcasting in 5e at least feels very wizardly to me. Do I think it'll ever happen? No.
So you're saying never gonna happen?
Never gonna happen. Like, the spellcasting system
I
goes back
agree.
so yeah,
Well,
right?
I just think that, like, I think it's too complicated for the WotC team, and I think it's too complicated for most teams to, like, imagine a different sort of casting for every single class in your game.
You know, you say it might be hard, but like we were talking about Shadow Dark in our last episode, and then, the core game has 2 casting classes. They've since come out with a whack more, but even those casting classes, they do follow some similar spell casting rules, like their version of concentration focus. Like, it works the same between them. They have to continue focusing on certain spells to have the effects persist. But when spellcasting doesn't go their way, their priest class has to make penance, which is the one I'm kind of less excited about. They have to pay a price, sometimes a literal price, or they have to do some active service. It's kind of DM fiat as to how that happens in order for them to get their divine magic back. Wizards, if you fuck up, there's a whole wizard mishap table that you have to roll on in order to figure out how your spell goes bad. So even there, in just those 2 classes in that much more simple OSR-inspired game, have much more distinct spell casting grafted onto the generic system that the system presents.
So in that case, I would say unlikely. I think it could happen. I think it could happen, but I think that they're more interested in honing down instead of bloating out, and I just think that, like, these sorts of, like, flavorful differentiations, which I love and think are great, like in things like Draw Steel, I just don't think that WotC is that interested in it, unfortunately.
Yeah. Or also, when you have a system of some degree of complexity, you're right that you don't want to add to it if you think all it's going to bring is, like, it would have to really bring flavor in order to justify becoming a separate subsystem for 6 different classes, potentially, right? Right now, we only get that in, like, the Sorcerer.
Yeah. And Warlock.
No, Sorcerer and Metamagic, right? They can fuck with their spellcasting.
Well,
Warlocks,
sure, but, like, Warlock's spellcasting is very unique, so I would say that, like, Warlock is also an example of different.
Their spell resource mechanic is very unique, but their spellcasting, I don't think is.
If that doesn't count as differing by class, then I don't know what would. Like,
it differs. No, sorry,
unique.
It differs by class, but I'm talking about like how you actually cast the spell. Like Warlocks, sorcerers can literally manipulate it in different ways. Warlocks is just like, I can't do it as much, but or more depending on how nice my DM is with short rests. But
I think Warlock has to count.
Both. You know what, Jay? We're both right.
Anyway, okay. So last one for me is. Again, gonna go very bold here, and I'm gonna say probably gonna happen. I think standardized subclasses is something that WotC would do. I don't necessarily know that it's good. They wanted to in the playtest, but then they pulled back on it because it was going to require too much hacking of old content, and they probably got scared. I think also, like, in the subclass power levels right now, some of them are balanced around that you get this feature at 14, and if you pulled it back suddenly to level 10. But, like, unstandardized subclasses is one of the things that currently makes Wizards good, which is that Wizards get their capstone subclass feature at level 10, whereas every other class gets their capstone at, like, 14 or 18.
And for a paladin, their subclass is their 20th level capstone feature.
Right.
Whatever it happens to be.
So it's one of the most powerful things about being a wizard is that in the levels people actually play, they get all their subclass features.
You have all your shit. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very good when your subclass gets your features early on, and for subclasses like the sorcerer, who gets in the levels people actually play like 1, maybe 2 features, pretty brutal. So yeah, I think that standardizing subclasses is probably just sensible and reasonable, and I think very likely to happen. What do you think?
I think you're bang on the money there. And I was going to make the exact kind of point that you were making there in regards to like they're already moving in that direction clearly from when they were putting out UA and playtest materials before the launch of 2024. It seemed pretty clear that they were really looking to standardize the subclass levels across all the classes, so you're all getting your stuff at the same time. Which again makes the game easier to play, easier to pick up for newer players because you pick up your second class after you've played your first, and okay, well at this level I'm getting my new specific bard thing. Speaking of which, like in terms of some of those jumps you were talking about as well, right? Like bards have one of the most brutal like subclass jumps where it's like you get one at 6 and then you don't get another one until like 14.
Yeah.
So you're just living kind of without feeling as much that specific flavor of the character you're trying to play for so long. It's rough. I definitely see that happening.
All right, this is your last one.
This is one, and in keeping with the bottom half of the list, all my garbage appears to be sinking to distinct class identity, which is, I think, on the surface of it, something everybody wants. I just don't know if we'd be able to get past the history of the game, because I've always felt that like I came from like video game fantasy, so my notion of having like two divine classes came from like World of Warcraft, where like, yeah, you have a paladin, but then you also have a priest. They're a clothy. They're not running around with a big, heavy two-handed weapon and full plate armor, like running into melee and smashing people. Like that is not in keeping with that fantasy at all. I think of a priest, I think of someone who's a person of the cloth who managed to, earn the favor of a god due to their devotion. So the cleric and the paladin have always hewed too close for me in that regard. And there's a lot of other overlaps there. The ranger and the druid can get a little close sometimes. Anytime they do like an unarmed barbarian or fighter, I feel maybe the monk's getting stepped on a little bit. So I would love to see either some of these class concepts compound together. Like I think cleric and paladin easily go together as one thing, and then you can theme out subclasses around being a priest of nature,
not just subclasses, but you could, I mean, right now there's that level 1 or 2 choice that clerics get, I believe, or maybe it's paladins get, where you get either a cantrip or armor proficiency. I think
it's martial art. It's martial weapons and heavy armor.
You can imagine them expanding that out and making that into basically a paladin flavor or priest flavor divide instead. Yeah.
I mean, that's really what it is, because the other one is you get to add your wisdom to religion checks so that you're actually good at them, because you probably don't have a great int as a cleric. And like an extra cantrip, so you're leaning in. And I don't know that anyone takes that, because those are mostly ribbons, and the other one is an armor and weapon proficiency.
So imagine if you were picking between full casting and smites. Like, wouldn't that be an interesting choice? Yeah.
So it's definitely doable. Do I think it'll happen? I think if they tried to release a player's handbook that had a cleric that could do paladin or paladin that could do cleric, and there was no cleric or paladin, I think people would be mad.
So are you saying never gonna happen?
And never gonna happen.
I don't necessarily think that the edition change from 5e to 6e is going to be one of those, like, reinvent the wheel editions, like the change from 4e to 5e was. And in a big way, 3.5 from 2e and then 4e from 3.5, those have all been true reinventions of the game. Like, there hasn't been a handoff between a successful edition yet, basically. 3.5 had massively waned in popularity. 4th edition kind of crashed and hit the ground running. There's a revisionist history going around now that, actually 4E was really successful. Okay, then why did it last 4 years, guys? Come on. Why'd they try and do a 4.5 after 2 years, guys? Come on. Anyway, they've got a killer team in there. They've got Mackenzie to arm us. They've got Justin Armin. They've got Hake, James J. Hake in there, who's like, these are people who know 5e inside out, backwards and forwards, upside down, in a snowstorm. Like, they could tell you everything about it. Like, these are all great developers who've also worked on other kinds of games. Like, we're talking about people who've worked on narratives type systems, people who've worked on PBTA type systems, people who play a wide breadth of games and know a wide breadth of the gaming history and the gaming hobby. And these are people who have been vocally very critical of D&D in the past. I mean, James J. Hake has a podcast about D&D that has been running for years with Dale Kingsmill and a couple of other people.
Sean Merwin, yeah.
So I think that this power team of young, innovative designers is going to come in here and kind of shake the game around a little bit, see what falls out. Obviously, there's limits to what they can do. They are in a corporate environment. They do not have godlike power to transform this game from the ground up. But do I think that they can get to distinct class identity? I absolutely think they can get to distinct class identity. I personally would rank it as probably gonna happen. You're ranking it as never gonna happen. So let's meet in the middle here. It could happen, or
I love that meeting in the middle is on your side.
Okay, fine. Fine.
No, you know what?
No.
I'd love to be on your side of the middle because so far my other two are below us. I'd like to have one at least possible.
I think
but,
so.
Yeah, I do hope. See, I agree with you absolutely on what you're saying. There is a young team there that has been critical of D&D, but loves D&D. Like, it's always the fans that are the ones that are most critical because they love it the most, and there's just that one little thing that irks them, or little things. So yeah, I think they would definitely come in looking to shake things up more so than some of the old guard, possibly, but I also think that Hasbro is still there.
But here's the thing: Hasbro doesn't know anything about D&D. They just get a check-in every month, and they're like, "Okay, go make more money, or else we'll fire you." I don't think they actually know.
I agree with you. I want to know. So you don't think they ever see like any of the feedback coming in from the fans? Yeah, you're probably right. They probably wouldn't understand it.
They don't understand what's going on. They're just like, these nerds are talking some shit about shit. Are they happy or are they mad? I don't know. If they're mad, fire somebody.
That's all I care about. If I'm mad, it means they won't give us money, so fix it. So I'll cede that to you. Yeah, okay. They, if they have truly pie in the sky and no one's standing in their way, I see them shaking things up. But I think one of the things is, I qualified specifically with, do you think in a post-2014 5e world would it happen? Knowing that, because I think as the additions are going on, I think more and more so, it's becoming another level of sediment that stratifies and creates a core set of notions around what D&D is for the next generation. And I don't know if if 5e babbies like me are going to come in and be like, well, there has to be cleric and paladin, because that's what I know, and I'm your most likely customer for the next thing. Give me my clerics and my paladins, please. Will another layer of sediment create new expectations?
The thing about online feedback is that you're not really getting the opinion of the average consumer. You're getting the opinion of the hyper online consumer, right? The ones who actually pay attention to these.
Our opinions, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But like when it comes to a new edition, you gotta justify why people should try this thing, right? It's gotta be different enough to make it worthwhile. I think we're kind of seeing some of the consequences of them not going bigger with 2024 in kind of like a lukewarm adoption of 2024. I don't know that like people are jumping over themselves to try out 2024 when it seems like kind of a side grade instead of an upgrade. I think that maybe they learn a lesson from that. Maybe they learn that 6e needs to be a little more stark and different. Maybe there's no 6e ever again. Maybe we just get D&D 2028 and D&D 2030 and blah, 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 blah. But, we'll find out in the future, I suppose. But I think, like, realistically speaking, 2020 6th edition only comes around when 5e has stopped selling. And if 5e has stopped selling and they need to justify a new edition, I do think that there's more power behind change. We'll see. I may be wrong. Maybe that's just overly optimistic, but you know me. I like to be
I think
optimistic.
I think the truth is probably very much in the middle. I do think you're right that they're going to need to diversify the game. I mean, you already said the way fifth is different from fourth and fourth is different from third is fairly stark. Actually, I think the general consensus is that fifth might be a little bit more like third and that it wanted to try to be a little bit like everything.
I think that fifth kind of cuts the middle between third and second. Actually, I think it's kind of like somewhere
Interesting.
between those two. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I it's a good point, and I definitely think they're going to have to diversify. That's what I want. I can't figure out where I'd set, like, if there's anything in 5e that has become like, if I were to give an example of something I think from 5e is going to become part of the lexicon of D&D in all future editions going forward, it's advantage.
I would say advantage and proficiency bonus. I would say those are both
Yeah,
core
proficiency for sure. Probably like the flattened math of. I wouldn't be surprised if they flatten it more, to be quite honest.
now. Yeah, I think that they should and will. I think like something like expertise has got to get nerfed between this and the
Yeah,
next version.
yeah. Reliable talent. Yeah.
Yeah,
I can't roll
reliable
less than
talent's fine.
27.
Expertise just breaks the bounded
Breaks.
accuracy.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. It'll be very interesting to see from both of our sides, like, what it is they decide is now a sacred cow that maybe wasn't previously, that becomes part of what we think of as D&D going forward, as well as seeing how they make it something bold and new and distinct from the last edition to justify its existence. Because those are interesting paths to tread.
Yep. And if I'm being fully honest, looking at this chart, I'm gonna put this down here.
Oh no, I broke him. Oh no, I broke them. I broke them.
That's all.
My
That's all. That's all. That's all. All
okay.
right. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you have ideas for 6th edition, let us know. We might put them in the chart later.
Yes.
But for now, thank you for joining us. Goodbye.
Goodbye.